Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast. So, on to today's topic, we're talking about how to introduce change that others want to adopt. As leaders, we're visionary. Of course, we're charged with the strategy implementation. We are charged with motivating the troops so that we can achieve what we're set out to do. But often we get pushback. We feel as if the vision we carry and the excitement we have of what could be through the changes that we want to bring in are not quite caught on and appreciated by everybody else. And so what would it actually look like if we could introduce changes that others actually want to adopt? So I want to start with a couple of quotes here. Before I do, though, I was told by my amazing team to remind you that Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast is now on YouTube as a separate channel. So if you haven't already, please do head on to Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast and subscribe. All right, so these are three quotes that are going to get us thinking through what it means to get buy-in from our people. So number one, you have to get buy-in as a leader instead of demanding adherence to management. And this is by Chris Little. We tend to think, well, I'm sitting in a leadership position. I have the mandate to say where we're going. And of course, when you signed up, to join me here, you also signed up to agreeing to come with me. But this quote is saying you have to get buy-in. It should not be a given that when you speak, when you introduce something new, that of course people will just follow because I am the leader in the leadership position and I'm taking them somewhere. Second quote says, commitment is a function of two things, clarity and buy-in. If you want commitment from people, it's going to be a function of how clear you are as a leader and the buy-in you get from followers. And this is by Patrick Lencioni. And then the last quote, when your employees buy into your agency's goals, to your organizational goals, they're motivated to work their hardest to meet those objectives. When people buy in, then they're more motivated to meet objectives. Now, what is buy-in? Buy-in is acceptance of and willingness to actively support and participate in something, such as proposed new plan or policy. When people accept and are willing, did you hear that willingness? To actively support and participate in something, that is them giving you buy-in. And too often leaders assume buy-in. You signed up to come here. You signed up to be on this project. I expect you to get in line and get things going. And when things aren't happening, we're thinking, what is wrong? Like, how do they not see that following this course of action is the best course of action for us? How do they not follow me simply because I'm on the leadership seat? How do they not see that the status quo is a far worse situation to be in than where we're heading? And today I'd like to share with you, I've got 6 points here on how you can introduce change that others actually want. That willingness piece, they actually want to adopt. And number one is make sure whatever you're introducing, that you have senior executive sponsorship. You want to make sure that what you are about to introduce has a person in power, a person who's technically competent, an expert, and a person who is a person of the people that is backing this change initiative. Now, I don't know what level you are in your organization and what it is you're looking to introduce. It could be peer-to-peer. It could be that you're heading a project. It could be you're heading a department. It could be that you're in the executive committee or one of the members of the C-suite. You could be the very CEO or executive director, whatever your title is, and you want to introduce a change. But get this, even when you're in the senior most position, there are times you will delegate the charge of introducing that change. You will delegate that to someone else. And Don't ask me how organizational behavior functions and why we put each other on a totem pole and we attribute power and importance according to level of seniority. But people will check to see who exactly is promoting, who is leading this change initiative. And they may judge based on who it is, whether or not they're going to get in line. And so from the onset and throughout this change initiative, make sure that you have the most senior executive sponsor that you can, so that there is credibility to this change initiative and it spurs motivation. That if the CEO is behind this thing, the CEO is busy. This CEO has so many other projects, and there are all these other C-suite executives. If the CEO herself, the CEO himself is the one behind this change initiative, this must really mean something significant to our strategy, to our business, to our organization. Number two, back up what you're asking of people with evidence-based data. So it's not enough to say, I woke up and I realized the way we were doing things this past 18 months just won't cut it. And so now, rather than take this route, I'm thinking that we could change. No matter your position in the organization, people want to follow things that make sense. And so you're going to share evidence-based reasoning why people should come around. When I talk about evidence-based, your data should come both from the organization to justify why this change initiative should happen, because most of the time people need to have an awareness, right? I've been speaking about change over the past couple of weeks, and people need to have an awareness of the need for change. And we often, seated in a strategic leadership position, where you have access to all the information from all the different departments and all the different areas that are interdependent, we forget that not everybody has this high level insight. Sometimes people are bogged down into the details of what they're doing at work. And so it's only when you can raise their awareness of the need to change through data that preferably initially surveys everyone that is affected by this change initiative that you want to introduce. And in some organizations, you can actually survey absolutely everyone in the organization. And increasingly so, because we can use digital formats, you can, through phone, mobile, or through email, you can reach everybody. And even on the shop floor, where you might have to have somebody coming through with forms in the language that people would understand, you can get everyone's insight as to their understanding of the issues and what the problem is and what solution they would propose. That way, they truly feel like we are aware of what is going on. We have a broader picture. We have been involved in decision making, and the data says an overwhelming number of us feel this way or would like to take this direction, even if that person is dissenting, even if the person who's looking at this thing right now wasn't one of the majority, the fact that they were also included in the decision making, that their input comprised that data that you're using to propose a change initiative, that is going to be one way of not only bringing their awareness, but also their motivation and their desire to get behind that change initiative. And the second thing is, and we often overlook this, but I think this is so key. Management would then, after maybe getting insights from either the entire population or a sample of the population, management would then go straight ahead and appoint people who can take, maybe create a committee that will take these insights and working internally or working with consultants, translate them into programs that they can implement. But seldom is management mindful of the representation in the committee of the people that management is looking to get buy-in from. you may see that there are certain doers. There are people with insights. They know the organization most. There are people, maybe you just decided to get a person from every department, that you make sure that there is representation of the departments. But you would be surprised as to what other classifications, what other categories of differentiation people associate themselves with. You could get a representative from every single department, yet you will hear people say, this committee does not represent us. So as far as, of course, as far as it is possible to do this when you're introducing a change initiative, to get people to want to adopt the change, as far as it is possible, find out the different ways people define themselves, the different groups with which they identify, so that you're also representing not just the functional representation, but you're representing people in their groups of belonging. So you might find that people would want gender representation. Other people would want disability representation. Other people may see that they're clustered between formally employed and informal, that people who are on contract and people who are not, people who are full-time and people who are part. There may be more classifications and groups of belonging that your constituents attribute, your constituents identify themselves with. Make sure that when you're forming a committee, as far as is possible, you have represented the interests that your population represents. And this might mean asking people who they think represents their interests, rather than who you think would be most articulate, maybe most insightful, maybe most intelligent, maybe a great orator, a great communicator. Ask people who they think represents them well. You may have to do a little bit more work to make sure that you're able to get everybody's inputs, especially if they want to communicate differently. They may not be the most eloquent person, but they are chosen by the people who feel like they're their representative as the person to represent them. I'll give you an example that I had when I was running a group of businesses. I had observed just by myself that things moved faster with greater enthusiasm when there were certain people behind them. And I did not sit and say, what do you mean? I am the group managing director. These are my businesses and you know, what I say goes. I observed that. And I made sure to bring those people whom different areas of the organization found to be their, let me put it this way, their de facto leader, right? De jure, legally, you are the person sitting on the leadership seat. Okay, that's good. We respect you. We get it. But if there are other people who the constituents you're speaking to find to be more representative, they will then defer to them. They will want to hear from them as their representative, and they'll want their views to be shared by them. Tap into those people and make sure that they're represented in the committees that then take these insights, this insights, so they can interpret the evidence gained from these insights and come up with a conclusion. That is organizational insights. It's one thing to look inwardly and say, where were we before? Where are we now? Where do we want to go? What does the data say? But when you just take insights from within, you may have a distorted view of what the climate is, of just how pervasive that issue is, whether truly or not, despite the data, something should be done about it. And so another thing to do after having looked internally where you want to introduce change that other people would adopt is conduct industry-wide research. Find credible people, find diverse diverse sources and have them conduct research on other organizations, other sectors, other places where maybe there's case studies and there's benchmarking and good practice, so that then you can bring the internal insights with the research that has been conducted in the industry to form a greater picture of the need for this change. So all this while, from having the executive, the senior executive sponsor, and now looking for evidence-based insights for decision-making, is so that you are, first of all, showing, number one, that this is really important to us. This is why we have the senior most person behind this. The second thing is, I didn't just get up because I had rice and beans and what we were doing before didn't work and came up with this. But we have done research, we have received insights from you, we have your representatives that are going through the findings, we have external sources that are corroborating this, the same findings. And so this is why you're building a case for why this change initiative should be important to them. Then the third thing, and I really want you to lean in on this one, because this is where we lose a lot of people when we're introducing change. When we don't consider corporate vision, corporate value, the culture, and even the current strategy that we're working on. When a decision to introduce a change comes in, and that decision either goes against our values and our culture and our norms, or that decision is veering away from the current strategic direction we chose to take. And of really, really importance here, when you're introducing a change, is to ask yourself, have we done something similar before? What was the result? What was the process? How did people feel about their involvement, their awareness, their understanding, their ability to come alongside and implement that change? Because that's going to influence. They're still going to remember the previous incident, and that's going to influence the success of this one. That's going to influence whether or not they'll give you buy-in on this one. You're also going to ask, okay, has we done something similar, or are we doing something in parallel? Are we doing something in parallel similar to this, which then is going to make everybody think, wait, why are we going around in circles? Why are we duplicating things? Why are we not aligned? Seeking corporate alignment is so important because people then get fatigued. Like, senior management is confused. We were there. These are the same people that tried to implement the last change initiative. We didn't like the process that went through. We didn't like the consultants they brought in, and how they treated us. We didn't even know what the result of that outcome is. We were taken out of our work, given extra loads to do, and then it just disappeared. So here they come again, right? To you, this is a great initiative, and they might even agree. And had they not have the benefit, or rather in this case, the cost of hindsight, the cost of what happened before, they will come along. But because they know what happened before and it didn't work out well, they are not interested in coming along. So it's important. Have we done similar things before? What was that process like? How did people feel about that? What was the outcome? How was it communicated? How was it concluded? Are we running something parallel to this? Maybe slightly different? How do people feel receiving all of these things from different departments or from different heads, or with just a different title? Can we do it differently? Or have we recently had something similar to this and it didn't go well? Because if you recently had something similar to this and it didn't go well, no matter how the data comes out and how much, after you've done your cost-benefit analysis, how much it will benefit the organization and benefit the people for you to embark on this change initiative, there will be pushback. You will not get buy-in. The number 4 to introducing change that others want to adopt is inclusive two-way communication. It's come from above, it's got senior executive sponsorship, all the C-suite is behind it, the heads of department or whatever else are behind it. This is what we're going to do. When leadership is asking people to deviate from what they're currently doing. People are not happy to change. It's just human nature to resist change. This is fine. Even if it's not working too well, this is fine because this is familiar. It is an act of humility and an act of responsibility, even though it might take longer, even if it would be painful, even if you may hear things that you do not want to hear, even if there may be factions that will bring up issues just to be disruptive and not really to aid the process. You must, as leadership, create inclusive two-way communication. And that means communicating in the preferred format of the people, of the constituents that you're representing in your organization. Some people are happy with just getting a town hall. Everybody's in that town hall. We hear from the CEO. We hear from maybe consultants and the other directors that are behind this thing. Ask a couple of questions, raise a couple of things. Maybe we've got our union representatives, and that's it. Other people may want to have one-on-ones. Can somebody sit with me and please explain this to me? Some people may want the language change. So maybe you're communicating this in English, and I prefer it to be communicated in another language that I am comfortable with. Now, of course, you're not going to go through everybody's language in their mother tongue, but as far as you can, you're going to look at the representation in your organization, and you're going to make sure that people can hear things communicated to them in the format, in the language, and by the messenger they prefer, by the person they prefer to hear from. So you can make the most of those representatives in that committee. Have those representatives communicating. Maybe there is the overall conversation with the senior executive sponsor, but then smaller conversations can be had between their representatives and themselves, and not just to give feedback, just give information, but to also receive feedback, to also hear what people are hearing from this. And what people are hearing, this is going to affect them in their work, how this is going to affect them and their ability to perform, how this is going to affect them and their work-life balance. You guys know I talk about 360 leadership, right? The importance of making sure that a person feels that they are able to thrive at work and at home. So it is important when you want to introduce a change initiative and you'd like to get buy-in, to listen to people, to share their inputs on how to even better this plan, to share their reservations on why they don't think that this is something that we should do. Either we should do in its totality, or we should do now, or it should be done by them in particular. That's key. And that should be fed back to the committee and thought of. And the fact that it's gone back and it's being worked on, that being communicated. And even being able to mention where these insights and these inputs came from the people that you're representing, so that they truly feel that we are heard and we're taken seriously. And when we speak, it matters. Number 5 is to negotiate to maximize value for all parties. So let's say there's an impasse. Let's say you get to a place where people are blocking, people have reservations, people feel as if by introducing this change, some will stand to gain more than others. And so they do not want to go along with this change. What then? Do you just say, okay, you know what? I was just doing this as a formality. You should be grateful that you're even involved in the change process. So instead, we're just going to go ahead because we can see overwhelmingly this is going to work out well. We've done the math, we've done the research, we have spoken, and the majority of you want things a certain way. It doesn't take a lot of people to be disgruntled. It doesn't take a lot of people to disagree, for their low morale, for their dissatisfaction to affect all those around them. So rather than say, it is what it is, we just went through the formality of involving you in this thing, we're going to go ahead. You're wasting our time. We should be implementing by now. Get to a position where you're negotiating. Negotiate, find out what the interests of people are. And the interests are usually intangible things. Is it that people want recognition? Is it people just want to be included in decision making? Is it people want to be respected? Is it that people want to have a representative, a permanent representative in a certain committee that's making decisions? Is it that there were some promises made previously that were not addressed, and so they are blocking future initiatives, even if they're unrelated, because of the outcome of the former things? So is it time to go back and do something about the former issues that were not addressed? So that is with interest. What about the actual things that are being spoken of? Listen to what people are asking. And sometimes it's not that people don't want the change to move forward and don't want to give buy-in just simply because we want to block. There may be something that is of interest to them that may not be the interest of the majority, or that is of interest to them that may not even be costly to address. That when you do address, then all of a sudden they're also giving you buy-in on this change effort that you want to introduce. And then give and take. You might give something as leadership, as management, as the sponsor of this change initiative. You might give something that may not be of such great value to you, but is of infinite value to them. For instance, recognition. And you can ask them to give something that would be of great value to you, that may be all right for them, for them to give up, that may not cost them to give up. For instance, giving maybe a contingent, yes, that if these terms are met, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to give our buy-in to this change initiative. And then finally, institutionalization. This is integrating things into the organization. We often start change and project management initiatives without the consideration that business is proceeding, people are about their duties, and we're introducing something new, which is possibly asking for time away from work, is possibly asking people to play more roles than they initially signed up for. The structure, the systems, the environment may not support that change initiative. Things may be going just as they always have, and you're bringing something new without having created the environment for it to thrive. You're introducing a change initiative, which after that project period in which that initiative is being introduced, there is nothing in the systems, in the structures, even in the skills that you have helped people build that will sustain that change. And especially if this has been the case in the past, people will not want to buy in because they know they're going to be sabotaged at the end of it. After all the excitement of that change initiative, once we go live, there is no further support to make sure that this can be sustained. Yet now my KPIs are reflecting this change. Yet now I need to show performance at a certain level, and I'm being measured by how well I am implementing this change, but everything in my work and everything in our environment is just as it was before. It does not support the implementation of this change. So people feel as if you're setting us up for failure because you're not going to maintain this. You're not going to be willing to make the investment to make sure that what you're introducing is institutionalized. So I don't want to have any part of it, because I do not all of a sudden want to find out that I'm not getting a bonus because of something you introduced and then you've made it hard for me to actually comply with. And so what institutionalizing this change looks like is frequent, clear, honest senior executive sponsorship communication, and of course, two-way communication, because also getting feedback, acknowledging that feedback, and doing the work of what's been flagged and reporting back the outcome after having implemented. It looks like bringing in, developing or buying and implementing the tools, the skills that will increase people's ability, and not just ability to effect the change, but ability to adopt it even in the context of everything else that is going on in the organization. Number 3, equipping managers to be able to coach and support people. 360 support for their work and life to be able to sustain, to be able to reinforce and maintain this change that you're asking of them. And then finally, building in the monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And really building them in at every single level, making sure that it is agile, that people can quickly give the feedback of how well this change initiative is working or where it is not working, so that you don't have to wait until the quarter is up and you're doing reviews. But minute by minute, there can be feedback and decisions are made to pivot, so that your workforce, so that your cadres really feel as if you are serious about institutionalizing this change effort. Now, some people may have inherited the negative outcomes of previous change efforts. And here you are as a leader wanting to do something. Maybe you're new, or maybe just this is new. And you may then have inherited the bad will, right? The ill will, the bad taste, or whatever, the bitterness of a previous change initiative. It is for you to come out and be honest. Listen, I've received this feedback that this was attempted before, things didn't go well, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to make sure, even as we're planning to move forward in this change initiative, to go back to look at what didn't work so well, to then plan on how to rectify the wrongs from before, how, or whatever language you're going to use, especially if the actors are still present, right? You don't want to seem like they messed up, I'm bringing in something great, I will do it better. But use, politically sensitive and tactful language to say, we're going to do a review of what went well, that we can continue with, what didn't work so well, that we can make sure to mitigate against similar experiences and build a stronger structure, a stronger system for what we're going to do. And we're going to make sure that we're communicating and we're doing this together all the way through. So if you want to introduce change that others actually want to adopt, you're going to have to show that you're really serious about this. By having senior executive sponsorship, you're going to bring in evidence to justify why this should be done. And it's not just something that you came up with, or executives were just sitting there when they went on their retreat and all of a sudden they're coming up with this. You're going to make sure there is corporate alignment, because people are fatigued and people have been burned by previous initiatives that did not go well. Either the initiative was ill-placed, or the process wasn't inclusive, or the outcomes were not as was communicated, or the outcomes were not even communicated at all, and things just, they just died away, they just faded away. You're going to make sure there's always inclusive two-way communication in the format, in the language, and by the messenger that the people would prefer to hear from. You will negotiate to maximize values for all parties. You don't say, well, they're not the majority, so we can ignore them. The majority say we should go ahead. They're still part of your organization. So you're going to negotiate what thing of value to them can you give up, so that they're able to acquiesce. You think about their interests, think about their issues, think about the positions that they actually want to put forward, and what of value to you that they can give to little or no cost to them, that can assure you that they also show goodwill and they will make a good faith move towards this change. And then finally, that you're going to make sure to institutionalize it so that you can create the environment. You can help people adopt. You can help people adapt. You can help people to sustain what you're asking them to do by removing the barriers for them to be able to implement, understanding that they have their work anyway. They're about something anyway before you introduce this change initiative. And so please make it make sense. Make it work for all of them so that they're able to deliver. I hope that this session has been insightful to you. For those who just joined me for the first time ever, this is the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast, where I share insights, strategies, and lessons for your 360 leadership success. 360 leadership is the concept that you exist in a personal and professional context, that how you are personally will ultimately come out in the workplace and influence your output there, and what you experience in the professional realm will shape and will influence and impact your personal life. And so I am here to help you thrive as a 360 leader, because you can only lead others as well as you lead yourself. So until next week, have a wonderful week. Bye.